animal
Yes.
shelter. So
Oh,
yeah.
that is so exciting. Kittens are
Yeah.
the best. And in that it's like they're just so fun and like bouncy and cute and sweet. I love having a kitten in the house. That is very exciting.
We've never actually had a cat at all.
Oh,
So-
you're gonna fall in love very quickly.
How old is
That's really
Maurice?
exciting.
How old is
What was
Maurice
that?
now? How old is your Maurice,
He
the
is
new one?
a year and a half now.
A year and a half. Okay.
Yeah, and he was like a couple months old when I brought him home, and it goes by really like they get big so fast.
Mhm.
But like the funny thing about like kittens, I've never had a dog, but I mean I've had a lot of friends who've had dogs, and I think the difference is like kittens are relatively like independent from the beginning. Like they know how to use a litter box. Like you're not like training them as much
Yeah.
in my experience. So it's like they're a lot of work and they're a lot of energy, but they're like kind of not the same level of like training involved, I guess, if that makes sense. It's so fun.
It
You're gonna
does.
love it.
Yeah.
What's is it, a boy or a girl?
Hello.
It's a girl.
Oh, hey, Cherry.
Hi, Cherry.
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 Hi. We're talking about Michelle's getting a new cat, so.
Very
We're getting the
excited.
kitten.
I'm
Yay.
jealous.
Very
Oh,
excited.
that's exciting.
Oh,
What's
Cherry's
do
already
you know what
done.
the name
No,
the
I
name
did
is
it.
gonna be?
Well, the current name is Phyllis, which I think is very cute, and I don't know why. But my daughter wants to change the name, so I said we should.
Phyllis? That is really adorable.
Isn't it?
I love that. It's funny.
Very funny.
I feel like that's the name of a book, right? Phyllis the cat.
Right.
Or Phyllis the kitten.
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny. Like two of the cats that I've had, like I got from shelters and just kept their name. The only one that I ever had to name was like a street cat that I kind of like took in, and it's really hard to think of names. I'm just like bad at it. So, because it's like a
so
big
my daughter,
decision,
she made
so.
an entire like long list, and I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, cute. Oh, that's very exciting. You'll have to share pictures. I'm excited for you guys.
I will.
So we have a quorum.
Happy things.
We have a quorum, and I believe we are broadcasting.
Oh, great. So we can get started then. Okay, so yeah, we'll call to order. So I guess the first, I'm just pulling up the agenda. The first is just approval of the minutes from December 14th. Did everyone have a chance to take a look, and are there any corrections or additions that we should make?
A bunch of little edits, but do you want me to just submit them? Would that be easier than going through changing stuff now?
Yeah, I think, well,
Minor, they're,
are they just typo kind of things?
yes, yeah. They're, agreement or words in 2 words instead of 1 kind of, they're simple, but there are a few.
Does anyone have any objection to taking the minutes with Alice's submitted corrections that would be submitted to Michelle?
No, that's fine.
Yeah, that is fine with me. So do we have, if there's anything, or if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from December 14th with the edits from Alice submitted to Michelle?
Also move.
So I'll just go through. So Alice, I can't hear you, but I don't think you're on mute, so it might be on my end.
And yes.
Thank you, Alice. Sherry.
Yes.
And John?
Yes.
And I say yes as well. Great. Okay.
Who seconded that? I got Sherry.
I second.
I think Alice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, John. Okay.
Thank you. So for public comment, is there any emails that have come through on the to submit for questions or anything from the public, Amy or Michelle?
I did not see any as of 10 minutes ago. There weren't any on the admin.
Okay.
I will go ahead and send Monette an email tomorrow and just make sure that if she has anything to share, she should share it. Because I think by sending something to the generic email that we've set up, anything that's there can be shared or should be shared with the entire board. So I'll just
Yes.
make a note to send Monette an email.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, that sounds good. It sounds like there's no other public comment for now. So then next would be the update to the borrowing policy, which I know is in our packet.
Yeah, I will definitely pull that one up on the screen.
Yeah, it looks like it was for the Chromebooks and yeah.
Yeah, so, oops, where are you? There you are. Michelle, do you want to present a little bit about why this is on the agenda and what you hope to accomplish by it and things that need to be actually addressed?
Sure. So we, sorry, I want to pull that. I have to change my view options because I can't see it. Essentially, we have added Chromebooks, and we will eventually, we have the hotspots in hand, but we will begin to circulate Chromebooks and hotspots to the public. Previously, the Chromebooks had only been circulating within the library, and now we will have them available for everyone to use to borrow outside of the library. So we wanted to add something in particular about that to the borrowing policy. And then we are currently not finding anybody, and so we wanted to add that to the policy as well. Sorry, I'm trying to look at
Yep, that's it.
Yes. So yeah. So that's essentially it.
Oh, and you did add that about having a parent or guardian agreeing to the equipment usage, because I think it just originally said you had to be 18 or over, and now we're saying you can be 18 and over with a parent approval.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Sorry, I couldn't see it. I couldn't figure out how to get it there. Yes. So we wanted to, because we didn't want people who came in who were high school age not to be able to have the option to borrow it at some point, because we know that this could be a big part of the population that borrows them. So that was our.
I'm a little confused about that part. Does it mean that the high school age student has to have a parent or guardian agree?
Yes, that's exactly what it means. Yes.
Okay,
so if
I thought it sounded as if either the person had to be high school age or older, or a parent or guardian had to agree. So I think maybe instead of or, maybe it should say or. I think you need to make it clear that high school age kids need to have a parent or guardian. Because it sounds as if
are we talking about kids younger than high school, Michelle? Are we saying if you're in high school you can do it, or if you're in high school you need a parent?
You have to be high school age or over to borrow it, and you can borrow it when if you're high school age, you need to have a parent's or guardian's permission to do so.
Okay, how about we just say school age students require a parent or guardian approval on the equipment, something like that.
I think it should say high school age or over.
Because we're not doing middle school or elementary.
Not middle school, no. Okay. They have to be.
Must be high school age and must have a parent or guardian consent to the equipment agreement. Or sign.
Or high school age borrowers must have a parent or guardian agree to equipment rental or equipment agreement.
Great. High school age borrowers must have a parent or guardian must have a parent
Agreed.
or guardian agree to the equipment well, I think it's called equipment agreement. How about sign the equipment
Fine.
agreement?
Yep.
Sign the equipment
Yep.
agreement.
Or approve of or something. I don't know.
Right.
Whatever.
Want to put in there-
Approve or sign.
Yeah. I don't care, whichever you want. I'm flexible.
I think it should be approved because they could be doing it electronically.
That's true. Approve the
Okay.
equipment.
Yeah.
Great.
That's
Welcome.
fine.
We have Monette now on the line, and
And the same under the in library use collection is the same thing. Below that,
okay.
it appears twice. There's a library of things, and then there's the in
Oh, I
library
see.
use
Oh, I see.
collection.
I gotcha. I'm with you. I got you.
Yep.
High school.
It's on the
age
next
borrowers.
page.
Yep. Okay. Borrowers must have a parent or guardian approve the equipment agreement. Do we have some eagle eyes watching my typos? My typos appear on the screen. Okay.
I feel
So
like I feel like that leaves the door open for middle schoolers and younger unless it's specified otherwise, but I'm not sure how to smoothly put that in there. I don't know if that's a concern or not.
And if you want to be clear about that, you just add another bullet point. Just say between borrower must read and sign equipment agreement. Just
Yep.
put another one that says must be high school age or over. And
Okay.
then the third one would be
Borrowers must be high school age. So you add that to the first bullet? Is that what you're saying?
no, I'd say create a separate bullet. No, just say
Okay.
borrower must read and sign equipment agreement. Or you could add it to the end of that. Say borrower
Okay.
must be
Read and
high
sign.
school age or over.
And be high school age. It's aged, correct? Right? Aged
Yes.
or over. Period. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's Andrew. Great. So we acknowledge that they have to be at least in high school or older. If they're in high school, they require a parent or guardian approval of the equipment agreement.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Cherry, for that clarification.
Okay.
I actually think we have a full board now. I think we have a full board now.
Yes, it looks like it. Yeah, this looks good to me. Is there anything else that people thought should be added or, had any questions about before we approve it?
I have one question. At the end of it, where it says overdue, lost, or damaged materials, it says at this time there are no fines. I'm wondering if that should be a sort of a separate item and not part of the regular. It should be not part of that 2-sentence heading.
Gotcha. Put it at
Maybe
the end.
Yeah.
We did something
Because
like that
I
with the
think-
face mask policy. We said this stays in place until such time. Do you remember that, Monette? You were the one who came up with that phrase in the face mask policy. Bless you.
Because I think people
Wait,
still
you're
have
on,
to.
Monette, you're on mute.
People still have to pay if they lose stuff, correct?
Right.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at the exact wording, but I believe I had phrased it was such until the state lifted the COVID-19 guidelines. So we were just saying we're following the state's guidelines. So that's what we did on the masks because the state was saying about the masks.
Right. So we could say due to COVID-19. Because that's what we're saying, because fines are different than
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, replacement costs for
overdue
damaged
fines,
materials.
right?
Yeah.
Can I just play, let me just ask for a second though. I just want to play devil's advocate here for a minute. And why during this time are we not charging fines? Because I think if we remove the fines, then we sort of remove that extra incentive for people to return things on time. And I would think that now more than ever, we want things returned on time because I would think so many more people are trying to access these materials.
Michelle, do you want to handle that?
So we really want to, first of all, we quarantine items. And so we would hate to have somebody return something and then it doesn't come off their record for 48 hours. So that's one of the reasons. But
Oh, I see. Okay.
and currently, we actually aren't lending the Library of Things items. We just started loaning out the Chromebooks again now, or in general now. But it was really because of the quarantining of the material.
That makes sense. Okay. Yep. That makes sense. The only other question I had regarding this document was just, are you able to renew the Library of Things and Chromebooks? Because it doesn't specify in the renewal policy that you're not. I'm just curious.
In special circumstances, we will, but for the most part, they're not renewable.
So that's not in the renewal statement.
I think it's not in there.
All materials
Maybe.
renewed twice except those with waiting lists. So we probably should add something there.
Yes.
At the top of the page, on the top of the borrowing, it does say that there are no renewals for certain kinds of things. So maybe you could, under the Chromebooks and hotspots, if you don't want people to renew, maybe you could just say no renewals in parentheses, the way you do on the Express books.
Oh, I see. Museum
and the Express
passes.
DVDs.
I gotcha.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Say it there. Yep.
Yep.
That's simple to do.
That's a really good catch, both of you. Yep.
So I think then I would just add again under renewals where it says, although unless otherwise noted, renewals may be done in person, by telephone, or online. And then I think I would say unless specified under the borrowing period, all materials.
Specified under the borrowing periods. Sorry.
It's okay.
Quote, all. Unless specified under the borrowing periods, all materials from renting or other no-fault libraries may be renewed twice except for those with waiting lists. Those, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's good.
And then we have, due to COVID-19, Reading Public Library has a moratorium on late fines, overdue fines.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
That's good.
Yep.
And do you want to add something like this moratorium will be lifted as other COVID related, or should we just leave it?
I think in this instance, we leave it because we're not really, this isn't really us following state guidelines. This is more about, I understand the biggest reason is the quarantining. Once you decide you're not quarantining books anymore, I think you just remove it.
Okay. And we would just come back here and just say, is everyone okay with saying we're going to start charging fines now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Overdue fines. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe we could say during the COVID emergency, the Reading Public Library has a moratorium on fines to define what this time is.
Right.
I mean,
it's an emergency.
The time of it's the COVID time.
Thanks for the reminder, Jerry.
Well, I mean, people might not know it. I mean, in 6 months, maybe there won't be, and people will say, well, it says you don't have any fines now. And it does, if you explain the reason, not that people should need to know it, but to make it clear so people understand why there's no fine now.
How about adding the word also temporary moratorium?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's good.
Good.
The temporary moratorium on overdue fines.
Good.
Yeah, I think that's good. All right. So if there's nothing else, do we have a motion to approve the borrowing policy as amended tonight?
Borrowing policy as amended.
I second.
Okay. So I'll just go through on my screen. Alice, Monette,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
and I say yes as well. Great.
Excellent.
Okay.
So Michelle actually also worked on this, but I'll just give you a little background just so that she can take some notes. The virtual meeting room policy, our goal for next week was to be able to basically purchase an extra Zoom license that we could sort of set up and lend out for just as we would do a meeting room. There were some challenges in getting this going. First of all, other libraries are doing this, so this isn't sort of outside the realm of possibilities. And Michelle made a really great effort in trying to make sure that we talk about the eligibility and general use rules for use. So this is draft, and right now we didn't want to put it into the main meeting room policy because it's COVID time, and we may change once we go back to having physical meeting spaces. This might be folded in, and we may change some of the eligibility or general rules for use. Michelle did a great job of trying to keep it as aligned with our original meeting policy as possible. But basically, we're proposing no charge. So the library would fund the cost of a pro license and offer out to Reading nonprofit, non-commercial individuals and organizations up to 3 hours of a slot. And I believe this would be set up. Michelle's working on the final logistics of it in terms of how you would reserve the spot and things like that. We do provide the eligibility requirements in that you have to be nonprofit, non-commercial. You have to be doing a civic, cultural, education purpose for the community. The person who's coordinating it has to reside in Reading or serve it has to serve the Reading community, but you need to have a sponsor who's from Reading. And there can't be any charges to attend, and you can't sell anything. So those things probably sound very familiar. Some of the general rules for use, where it might be a little bit different, we're assuming that all requests for this would be done online. Obviously, if we had to do it over the phone, we would help you, but our hope is that folks who want to use this are online savvy enough to figure out how to apply online. We may request proof of eligibility. This one, I'm not sure, is actually in the original meeting room policy, and I think it's something we should consider because we have had people who just are like, yeah, I work for this such and such. And so that might be just a library card. It might be asking for the 501c3 registration or number or something like that. We probably won't do it because it's a small community and we usually know who's who, but we just wanted to reserve that right. The reserving a virtual meeting room up to 90 days before the application is pretty standard. 3 hours is pretty standard. One caveat there was to add 15 minutes for setup, meaning if it's not going to be 3 hours and 15 minutes, you kind of have to plan your time accordingly. But the 15 minutes in setup involves the handoff where a library staff member who is the host would transfer the host management to the person who's managing the meeting. The meetings, and we said virtual meetings are available during the library hours of operation, and that primarily is so that there's a staff member available to do the host. So we didn't want to say like Sunday at 10 a.m. you can have it, because then we have to have a staff member on Sunday at 10 a.m. handing off the host, and that's a little awkward. Mm-hmm. I think one of the other things we came into difficulty with is you could start a meeting at 8:59 and we could hand it off, or 8:45. So that whole concept of being done by the time the library closes, that changes in the virtual atmosphere. But then what if somebody needs, is asking for technical help or anything like that? Should we really be requiring people to just be doing their meetings and have them done by 9 o'clock so we can check all of our Zoom license at the end of the night, at the end of, the time, and then shut it off? So that was one that I think we kind of went back and forth on. We felt it was very helpful in this particular way, in this particular situation, to reconfirm that virtual meeting rooms are not available for social functions. Although, I think by that we would mean like birthday parties. Obviously, a scout troop meeting is a social function. You have to be 18 and older and have to have a designated adult. If there's event has minors in it, that's pretty standard. Registration links and meeting details will be required to be posted on the Reading Public Library's community event calendar, and the registration has to be open. So the biggest risk with all of this is, first of all, we're going to require that you use the registration function. All meetings will have to have registrations, meaning you can't just send out the link to the actual meeting. You have to register for the meeting. But it's one way you can reduce on the sort of the Zoom. It doesn't eliminate it completely, but it reduces the Zoom bombing. And making it available to be publicly posted on the library's community event calendar does make it possible for anyone from anywhere to register for the event. Just like we would do with, I don't know, whatever group, the Reading Neighbor Network. I'm sure they would send it out to their group of their own personal network, but we would make it available should anybody be curious, because that's the only way we can adhere to that sort of open meeting sense of the meeting room policy. We also reserve the right to revoke permission. Failure to adhere to any of the guidelines may result in the cancellation policy. And you may be, I feel like those two say the same thing, but basically we can prohibit you from participating in any future virtual meetings if you violate the policy. What I do feel I want to make sure is in there, and I thought we put it in there, but it's not jumping out on me, is that we refer to the, I thought we referred to the behavior policy.
We do.
Okay. I know it's very specifically mentioned in the main meeting room policy, but should a librarian wish to, attend or remain the co-host for the duration of the meeting to make sure things are going okay, that's something that we could do as well. We don't have anything in about we say that in the meeting room at any time, the doors, staff member may check in on your meeting. But the behavioral policy thing, which is not about, right? So it's not about the content necessarily. It's about time, place, and manner or whatever, of your behavior. Are you behaving well or not? It's not about the content of what it is that you're talking about. So it's very different from our regular meeting room policy. And Michelle, do you have anything to add before the board takes this up for discussion?
I've spoken to a variety of libraries, and it sounds like it's well served to the communities, and I think it would be really helpful to the citizens of Reading.
Thanks.
Amy, would you be able to make it bigger?
Yeah.
Thank you.
How would we let people know that this service is available?
We would publicize it. We would do some advertising for
Okay.
it.
Okay. Because I would imagine there are a lot of groups that might be interested.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to clarify, so I know with the physical meeting rooms, we've talked a lot about like frequency of use. So with this with the virtual meeting room, we're not necessarily limiting how often a group theoretically would use this platform, right? Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, just wanted to double check.
I think if, as we add this into the regular meeting room policy, once we have a physical meeting space, that's when we would revisit all of those other restrictions anyway, because we revisit that every year anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
That's a good
and
idea.
you know, we had feedback from our survey and strategic planning that, well, you know, maybe that's something we'll discuss. We don't need to discuss it right now, but I think
Right.
part of the reason we wanted to make this a separate policy right now is because it is in response, it's very specifically in response to the COVID situation and our lack of physical meeting room space.
Do we have any sense that some groups may hog it? And I mean, I don't know if they would or not, but I mean, maybe some groups would try to use it all the time at the expense of other people never being able to get on. I mean, is there a way we can make sure that that doesn't happen? I guess that's what I'm saying.
We could do that. I think my feeling was actually came out of the surveys, the community surveys, where people had felt that they weren't being given access to the meeting rooms. And I felt like in this situation, especially where people don't have access to meeting room space, that we would leave it right now open.
Okay.
For all.
I mean, it's something we can always look at again.
Mhm.
Exactly, Cherry. I was going to say that, you know, this is definitely, we could kind of look at it as sort of a test pilot project, is what happens when we open things up without any restrictions? How do people behave? And first of all, I doubt very many people are going to have 3-hour meetings. I suspect people are just looking to do something beyond the 30-minute basic free account. And so, you know, it's probably like an hour, hour and a half. So my biggest question would be, do you have any thoughts on when the service should be open and available? Should we just book it to make it bookable, like the hours of operation, you know, 9 to 9 or 9 to 5 or whatever? I would probably bookend it. I would actually do something closer to 9:30 to 8:30 or something like that because of staffing issues. But do you have any thoughts on, you know, whether it needs to be started or ended or only during library hours of operations or some modified schedule during COVID?
Well, if you say, like, let's say 9:30 start, there are days that the library isn't open.
Only Thursdays.
So does that present a staffing problem for you then if you offer it though before the library opens on Thursdays? Should we,
Thursdays,
like, I guess
yeah,
what I'm trying to get at
yeah.
is, should we be following the hours of the library?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, we could just do hours of the library. Right now, our current hours of public service, and I believe, Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, the hours that we say that we're sort of even just answering the phone are between 10 and 8, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 1 and 8 on Thursday, and 10 and 8 on Friday, Saturday, and 1:30 to 4:30 on Sunday. So on Sunday, we have a little bit of a bookend of staff setup and breakdown time, cleaning, et cetera. So it's half an hour sort of on either end between 1 and 5. Every other day, we have a full hour on either end of the day. So instead of answering the phone and opening the doors at 9, we start answering the phone and opening the doors at 10, and then it goes till 8. Mostly that's because of the additional work that we have to do in order to stay open and provide even just curbside, like setting up and all that other jazz, cleaning. It gives the custodians time to clean. So we could just, especially because this is just a trial, we could just start with, you know, with hours of, you know, COVID hours of available operations, and it would match up calendar wise to when and if we reopen to PC browsing or PC or browsing or individual study, any of the other in-person things.
Michelle, what are other libraries doing?
So some of the libraries, it sounded to me like they would extend it past their hours that they were open. And most of the ones that I've talked to would, for the beginning times, it had to be between the hours that they were open. So, but they would allow it to end.
That's kind of, I was wondering if we said, like, the last time that you could schedule when to start would be 8:30, because then but you're saying till 8, that would be 7:30. If our COVID hours are really till 8, that would be 7:30 would be the last one to start. And whoever it is would just have to understand they don't have support.
That's right. We would make sure that we provide information about, we would give them support in writing. We would make sure they had access to Zoom instructions so that they know how to do it. In some libraries, they actually provide a little bit of a tutorial right at the beginning. So when they open it up early, those same librarians just give whoever's running the meeting a little tutorial on its use. So we could do that too.
I would just also add that, so I don't know, I guess we got our first Zoom license in somewhere around, we got it very quickly. I want to say it was at the very beginning of April, if not the late March. And I can still think of about 10 or 20 ways you could totally mess up and, you know, accidentally end a Zoom call. So I think we're going to have to go with faith that when people sign up for this, that if someone accidentally ends the meeting, there may be nobody at the library at 9:05 to answer their call to get them started again. And that's a shame. And it's just the situation that we're in right now. So I think there's a lot of ways that, but having said that, I feel like we've gotten pretty good at doing Zoom calls. So while there's many ways that we can fail, there's also a lot of ways we can succeed. So, you know, depending on how we roll this out with publicity and whatnot, we could be slammed. I don't know that we would be. And I think Michelle has indicated that, you know, it's been popular, but I don't know that any library has been overwhelmed by offering this service.
I would also imagine that there are a lot of people who are pretty good at Zoom by now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or that organizations have people on their people in their group who know how to use it fairly well. I imagine a lot of people are using it from home to do whatever they're doing for their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Or library trustee meetings.
Right.
So it sounds like there's no real concerns about the concept in general. I think we leave it fairly open if we just say it's available during the hours of operation, and then it must start at least 1 hour before the library closes to public service. You could change that to like a half hour, at least 30 minutes before the library closes to public service, which would in this case be 7:30 or 4:30 on a Friday or Saturday.
But we would let them keep their meeting going after the library closes.
Yes, there would just be
Yeah.
no technical support.
Right. I think that's reasonable. It's not like they're going to leave the room a mess or something.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know why that struck me so funny, but it's
It's like a bright side of COVID.
see, there are silver linings everywhere.
Wasn't that always the issue with the real rooms? Is you had always
Yes.
have a
Yeah.
custodian around and
Leave no trace.
yep.
So does the bullet above also need to be modified to say virtual meetings are available during the library's hours of public service as well? Or
Sure. I think that makes sense. And I think that's something that would change once we're not in COVID. You know what I mean?
Right,
I think that's, and what this allows us to do is if it gets really bad and all of a sudden we're not doing any public service, you know, we might change that to say, you know, it's available on Tuesdays and Fridays because that's when we can staff it. You know, I don't know. Or maybe we would expand it because we don't have curbside or things.
the bullet with the applicant must be over 18.
Mm-hmm.
It's 4.
And agree.
Yep,
Yes.
and agree to be designated a responsible adult, remaining present at all times for the event.
Excellent catch.
Or it's actually not even 4, in remaining present at all times if the event involves minors, I guess. Yeah.
I'm glad somebody else types as well as I do.
That would be me.
I'm the world's most awful typist.
Sherry, I think that was one of my director goals this year, was to have so many like meeting minutes or some things come out with typo free. I think I'm a record of 1 in a row.
Oh, I
So I'm do 2 in a row.
I have to proofread every email I send because my typing is terrible. And it's also worse because different keyboards have different spacing between the keys as well.
Yeah.
But basically, I'm a terrible typist, and the keyboard, it really isn't at fault, but I like to blame something.
The bullet that says the library may request proof of eligibility. Do we want to say what that is, or just leave it like that?
I'd rather leave it.
Eligibility is above.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think in that case, it might be, asking, your post office, your mailing address, or, do you really serve the Reading community? You have to have a sponsor, that kind of thing.
The eligibility is listed above.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The bullet under eligibility, the last one, the applicant does not.
Got it.
And then one other one, a couple of bullets down, the second one that says virtual meetings,
Mm-hmm.
it's may space B, the one under it. Right. So I just have, just to clarify one thing. So if I'm organizing a virtual event, so I apply, you grant me permission,
Mhm.
are you sending me the Zoom link and meeting ID and passcode that I am then distributing to anybody
No.
attending?
We're sending you the registration link.
So someone would be registering like as though you were registering for a library event.
Right.
Right.
And it would
Like
just be,
filling out the
yeah,
form. Yeah.
it's the Zoom registration link. And right before as we go into handing, I mean, that's what I had pictured, because I think unless you do registration, you really risk Zoom bombing. Although someone could Zoom bomb, they could, I could register as Mickey Mouse and then just Zoom bomb. But until you hand over the host duty, you can't, no one can really see the list. So that's why you need 15 minutes of setup. I hand over the host duty. I give them a list of everyone who's registered. They then can admit or not admit people into the room based on the registration list.
So how are the people on the registration list though getting the link?
Because when you register, you get emailed back a link. It's just that you have to have a valid email address to get the link. And you have to put in your name. You have to put in your name and your first name, last name, and an email.
Should we say something about this, that when registering, you have to use your actual name? I'm sure we could say it better than that, but in other words, no aliases will be allowed. So you must, if I need to register as Manette Verrier.
Well, that would be on the part of the host. So the host is the one who the host is the one who shares the registration link, although we do put it up on our calendar. But I'm not sure how you would enforce that. That's the only thing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now I just get confused. So if I'm the host, I thought I applied for a meeting,
Yes.
and then I said, do I get the link and share it with people? And you said, no, they all have to
Yes.
register when they
You
register.
yes, you as the host get the registration link and send it out to your network.
I do.
You get the registration link. There's
Mhm.
no meeting ID attached to the registration
Got it.
link.
Okay.
Michelle, tell me if I've just wandered way off of my understanding of how this would work.
No, that makes sense to me,
Okay.
especially because you're avoiding any Zoom bombing. And
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
The host, like, you would have the person who registered, they would meet you online 15 minutes early, and then you would go over everything, and then you would transfer the host to the library staff would transfer the hosting to the organization person who's running the meeting.
And
Yeah.
that person would have the ability to remove somebody from a meeting, you know, and block them from returning. That person would have to, that person could create a co-host if they wished, but once so that co-host could admit people or kick people out, share screens, all that other good jazzy stuff. So, but basically the registration, and it also gives us, so let's say, Monette, you do a program, you send it out to your network for the group that you're meeting with. We have it up on our public meeting calendar, and like 3 people register through the public meeting calendar because they just want to be a pain, and they're gonna try and disrupt your meeting. You can report back to us and say, Mickey Mouse from mickeymouse@gmail.com was disruptive, and we can, on our end, we can ban that. Now, my understanding is most people who are doing this frequently understand that they get banned very quickly, so it's sort of an after the fact, but it's something that we can look at and try to scan for as we hand off the hosts, and just say like, oh, you have another Mickey Mouse registered this week, so
Yeah.
so
Okay.
you might not want to admit them. So I do think that it's a little bit new territory for us to monitor, but in general, my sense from the many programs that we've done virtually with registration is that we've had, whether we've done it directly through LibCal or whether we've done it through Zoom, the registrations have been very honest and applicable, now that I touch wood, that people are generally interested in participating.
Okay, great.
So Amy, do you want us to vote on adopting this tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay. So do we have a motion then to approve the virtual meeting room policy as discussed and amended or edited tonight?
Move to approve the policy as amended.
Second.
Okay. So I will just go through. So Cherry,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Alice, John,
Yes.
Monette,
Yes.
and I say yes as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Manette.
Hi,
Okay.
Alice.
So I think was next the financial update. Yeah.
So let me just get back to my screen. I need to share, kind of refocus myself, figure out what I'm talking about. We're not doing badly. How does that sound? We're doing just fine. Our salaries are just under 50%. I'm not surprised at that. We will have some retirement payouts with 2 upcoming retirements, which I'll get to in a minute. As usual, when we have these things, we try to work what we can out of our regular budget, but we can always ask for a transfer. Bob is always very good about that in doing the sick leave and vacation buybacks, because no one expects necessarily to have, you certainly don't budget for people to have vacation buybacks. And then our municipal expenses are running a little bit under, although some of that is because of just the timing. We have a few things that come due in the latter half of the year. Our materials expenses are definitely a little more laggy at this point than we normally like to see. And I had a meeting with Jamie Penny today, and we talked about what needs to happen. The good news is that we targeted 14%. And so we're actually on target for 13%, which is what our minimum qualification is. But we are going to start looking back into, making sure we're maximizing things like overdrive, promoting Canopy and Hoopla. Even though those have been steady bills, they haven't gone up. They went up a great amount in sort of March, April, May, and June, and then they've leveled off. So there may be some we shifted money from purchasing things like those paperback bestsellers where we would buy, we would have had hundreds on the shelf for the summer beach reading. We had a few less, thinking I think that the streaming and downloading services would increase. So we just need to balance that a little bit more. I am pretty sure that some of the purchasing hesitation, as you can imagine, is coming out of, again, bestsellers are a great example. Normally we would purchase 25 copies of the whatever bestseller from the paperback bestsellers because they would just constantly be rotating. Because we're running at about 60% of our circulation, we're kind of scaled back on some of that because there's no point of bringing it into the building and having it on the shelf if it's not really going to circulate. I'm just really watching the wait lists very closely. So try to make sure that you don't have to wait too long for those popular things. So we do like to have that. I also talked to Jamie about thinking about where we might be able to lease materials either now or in the future so that we can make sure that the space we have for those multiple copies that we buy. So instead of buying them, we would just lease them and then get rid of them again. It's actually not too far off of the digital models that we use. Our state aid, everything was approved. We normally receive a check sometime in January, but I believe the Mass Board of Library Commissioners are about a month or two off of their regular cycle, possibly because of the state budget, but we're expecting to have our first of 2 checks come in the next month or so. The only thing we've really been spending our state aid budget on are things like communications and marketing. So really hasn't been much other than that. And I will say that, I think I do this every time, but just a shout out to Michelle, your communications team, and specifically to Desiree, of getting, whether it's been signage for the inside of the library or, whether it's printing, they've done a great job of really trying to keep both the physical pieces, whether it's stuffing it in a bag or whether it's making sure that we have the right services to distribute things electronically. They're doing a really great job.
I like that you even offer that you can recycle your bag when you pick things up.
Yeah,
it's just a nice little touch.
Well, and it's like this, people are like, will you take our paper bags? And we kind of all looked at each other. We're like, no, we do not want the public coming in and like inundating us with bags, but you can bring back the bag that we gave you. That's fine. So we just don't want to be, I guess probably not advertising, Target or whatever either as well. So in terms of gifts, I did just want to just quickly note in December, I'm trying to do this monthly gift update for you, and it gets very confusing because there's the date that the check was issued, but there's the date we actually deposited. So the money that was deposited, the revenue that came in December of 2020 was $5,000 from the Helen A. Nigro Foundation, which is they generally give us a donation in support of the children's room. This has been ongoing for many years, as many of you know, and we will be putting up a sign somewhere about the Helen A. Nigro Children's Room for their cumulative and continued support of the children's programs and rooms. And we also received a donation, which we tend to receive every year from Thomas and Lucretia Surface in the amount of $150. So that's just something about the gift donations. We do get some cash donations and very rarely much less than we have in the past because people tend to not just drop off dollar bills like they used to. Again, we haven't been spending a lot of that. A lot of those donations went to things like programs or new furniture or things like that. We just haven't had the occasion, so we're doing a little bit of hoarding. And also I gave you an update on the trusts. They are what they are. So we haven't had any occasion to spend on them. I really would love to spend some money, but we need to spend the municipal money down first. Any questions about the finance report? Okay. I was actually thinking, because we're trying to do the bill roll every week, I was thinking if it's not too large of a file, it might be possible for Catherine to scan all the invoices so that you have the Munis report and then you just have all the copies of the invoices. I don't know if that's helpful to you. When we were doing it like once a month or every other week, the stack could be quite hefty. But I'm gone back and forth with that in my head because very rarely do I have any of you ask me about such and such an invoice to show you. But on the other hand, maybe it's helpful for you just to kind of go see what the Alpha Graphics invoice says, or see what the Mass Library Association membership invoice says.
Maybe you could send along ones that were of particular interest or aberrations from the norm or something like that.
Right. Or anything that's not Ingram.
Or
Yeah.
Baker and
Taylor.
Taylor.
Yeah. So that might be a nice compromise, because I think, if it's from, there are things like Centerpoint, which was our large print provider, which we don't get very many. So it's good to see that and kind of acknowledge that we're getting those in. But yeah, a lot of the Baker and Taylor and the Ingrams are just page after page after page of $5.99 and $3.99. So I get where that might be doing it. So I'll speak with Catherine and see about how when she runs the Munis report, if she can also scan in just the sort of non-Ingram, non-Baker Taylor to start out with. We'll see what size that file comes, and that at least gives you the opportunity to look at the invoice. I mean, there's nothing particularly private about the invoices, so anybody can do a FOIA request to see an invoice. So it's not particularly protected. I just thought it might be helpful. So as you know, on December 26th, we did pause our in-library appointments. That was in response to the governor's December 22nd service. And I think I did send an email out this week, at least to Monette and Nina, that based on, maybe I sent it out Friday, based on last Thursday's report, Reading remains in the red, and actually we're still maintaining an upward trend of positivity rates and cases. It hasn't even leveled off yet, much less started to come down. So we have pushed back any opening at the earliest would be Monday, January 25th for any of those in-person library services. We will continue to look at that each week. As quickly as we were able to shut the services down, it takes longer to reopen them, mostly because of staffing and scheduling, and also making sure that we have coverage for everything that we need, and making those appointments. So whenever we decide to sort of open up, we need to give the staff and the public at least 2 weeks notice that we'll be doing that. We understand that this is not ideal for the public, and there are a few people that are disappointed that we're not open for in-library services. But we talk each week as a leadership team to talk about the challenges and the priorities of what's easy and what's needed, which aren't always the same thing. But what's interesting was, even in December, when we closed and I included a table, it would have been on the very last page. In December, we were at 67% of our normal circulation, or for the month of December, which is usually a smaller circulating month, which I included a table of the December circulation for all of Noble. And you can see how quickly, like at 20,699, we were clearly like number one. Once you add Beverly's, all of Beverly's together, they get a bigger number, but they have the branch and then they combine, but they're pretty close to us. But then you drop right down to Melrose and Gloucester at 12,000 and 11,000, Wakefield at 9,000, Salem at 8,800. A place like Salem or Saugus or some of those cities and those communities have had to shut down even their curbside service because their staff has been infected, and so they've had to close the whole library entirely. So how long we can maintain this little championship run of circulation, I'm not sure. But I guess I just want to say I'm super proud of the system that we've put in place, the response in helping people make holds and reserve their items and get them out to the public, the quarantining that we do upon return. The more we get back, the more people want to take it out. It's a little bit of a you call it, a flywheel. You know, it's like it got a little momentum going to it. So I hope you guys are proud and excited to know that we are definitely being a very productive library, even if we don't have in-library services.
Definitely.
I was very impressed to see us at the top, but we were often pretty either at the top or close to it.
Yeah, and definitely by per capita, we are really doing well.
Yeah.
So moving on to personnel, today was Ms. Allie Dowds. Allison is her full name. She goes by Allie as the new head of public service. She comes to us from the Boston Public Library. We're really excited to have her join us. This is probably one of the strangest onboarding experiences either she or this library has gone through. But to that point, you know, Lisa Racine in the children's room and Melissa Selden on the reference desk, those both are librarian ones who are in public services actually, have come on board during COVID. So we are getting in the swing of how do you introduce everybody to a staff when they can't actually meet in person? How do you train somebody to use the system when we can't share our equipment? Allie already has a whole bunch of plans. She's filing a weekly work list of goals with me every week. She is primarily working remote this week because Lorraine is still in the building, so she can't move into an office or anything. But we're very lucky to be able to have Lorraine and Allie overlap. They're meeting every single day. And then Allie is also using this time to have Zoom meetings with every librarian in the children's and teen and adult reference services division teams. So I'm just very excited. She has a great background. One thing that's not on here, she actually spent quite a amount of time working for the Department of Corrections, and she worked in some prison libraries and has a lot of experience in serving and finding out the needs of underserved communities. So she has a really wide background that I think will really stretch not only the public services staff, but Michelle and myself and Jamie as leaders. So we're very excited. We're very sad about Lorraine though. Lorraine's last day is this Friday. The staff, you know, have a few virtual things planned for her. But you know, Kathy Mix has left us, Susan Hegarty left us, and it's just been, you know, very surreal farewells and goodbyes. But she will have a sign. She has her street sign, so we're very excited about that. And we're keeping Eric's flower shop in steady business, providing all sorts of floral arrangements to say thank you. Allison Sloan has also announced her retirement after over 27 years of service. Allison works half-time in the collection services. She does a lot with interlibrary loans. You may remember from a few years ago, she was actually nationally recognized as a Paralibrarian of the Year. And we already have, we think, a few internal applicants. We won't be posting this externally. It's a grade C. It's basically like your average library associate with a little bit more a responsibility for handling workflow. So we think we'll be able to handle that with an internal candidate. And if we do, then we'll have to hire once again. The HR director, Sean Donahue, is really sick of me right now. So, but that's pretty much it for our library staff. I think, I don't know, we just launched the fourth annual employee engagement survey. We did not change any of the questions due to COVID because we really want to take a temperature, you know, that thermostat, that what's going on. Do people understand what their job is? Are they satisfied at work? That kind of thing. So this will be the fourth year that we've done it. We fully expect the difference to show up. We fully expect COVID to influence how people answer their questions. And we will read it as such and try and figure out how we're going to keep working through that and what we're going to learn from this for employee engagement. So also every division is supposed to be reviewing their mid-year goals, like how are they doing on those annual goals that they set. It's hard to believe that we're halfway through a fiscal year, but we are. So we're all already thinking about, you know, what we're going to be doing in fiscal year 22. That's it.
Thanks, Amy. So I guess the only other thing is other business, which I don't know if there is other business. I wanted to just say that I attended the Pulse of Reading event.
Oh, yeah.
Was that last week? I don't even,
Yeah.
I'm like so disoriented on time lately.
Yeah.
But yes, it was great. And it was really well organized and really well attended. And I thought it had some really great, conversation come from it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to, the library for putting that on. That was a great event.
Thanks for that. I know we had some other people there. Actually, it's funny you should mention that. I actually just to announce, I know in the minutes we referred to, there was supposed to be a grounded knowledge panel on the 20th. The program has sort of been overcome by events and for sort of a whole bunch of unforeseen, I think, Michelle, what did you say? Outside of our control, due to circumstances beyond our control. We are going to have to cancel, well, at least postpone, if not cancel, that grounded knowledge panel for the 20th. So I'm working with our consultant on that to figure out how, what the next steps are in that. And it's something I'm disappointed about, but I have to say I'm not surprised because it's been a difficult time to get together some of these types of sort of equity and awareness work. Having said that, we will have, and you're all welcome to, I believe Andrew and Alice, you might have been on the call the other night as well, the grounded knowledge panel. The next two conversations will be kind of feeding off, let's talk about race. And we've already had requests for more resources to do more, to learn more. But with the next, we'll talk about privilege. What is privilege? What does it mean? And then the third talk will then talk about power. Who has it? How do we use it? And types of power, which relates to privilege, and privilege which relates to race and systemic racism. So there is a little arc. We're hoping to have those scheduled in February and March. That is the goal. And if not February and March, then they will be in March and April, because we want to kind of keep the momentum going. So it's very exciting to be working on that.
All right. So is there anything else tonight that anyone wanted to bring up? Okay. So then, if nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just go through Andrew,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Yes.
Alice, John,
Yes.
Monette,
Yes.
and I'm yes as well.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Good
Have a
night.
good night.
Bye.
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye.